Welcome back from Japan. Did you have a good trip?
I had a awesome trip actually. Japan is a beautiful country. We had our travel advisory board in our Six Senses Kyoto and spent 3, 4 days there to learn from them a lot about
Hmm.
what's happening in the travel industry, what's new, what are the trending, are people booking early or late? So it was very educational. And then we exchanged, they give feedback on Six Senses, how we're doing,
Oh,
etc. So
wow.
that was super relevant for us.
Oh, that's awesome. And you had time for some karaoke I saw on Instagram.
I did some serious karaoke and some sake. That's also wellness. I mean, we had so much fun.
Oh, that's
If
awesome.
there's anywhere you should do it in the world, it's there.
Yeah. So it's so great to be sitting down with you today. So, Anna, you have a unique vantage point on the longevity movement because you're truly like the ultimate global wellness insider with a brain that's fluent in both science and spirituality. I think as we're seeing many people are using wellness and longevity interchangeably or without any real guardrails or clarity. Can you explain the differences between wellness and longevity?
So, wellness is very rooted in holistic lifestyle and natural therapies, whereas longevity is science, biometric, data driven. I think those are two ways of looking at it. But if you go a bit deeper, wellness is about living well now. It's about a good lifestyle, about feeling good, nutrition, sleep, movement. Whereas longevity is about pushing your lifespan and your health span further. So at the moment, we see that we've pushed our lifespan further, but not our health span. So we spend our aging time after about 63 years of age of being sick. And
Hmm.
that's not a desirable old age future. So if we can push that 63 years of age to 65, 70, or 75, or even 80 or 90, we have the ultimate life. And that is a different strategy. You're looking at measuring various biometric, another strategy. So I would say that wellness and longevity are very connected, but they are also separated. You can't do one without the other, but there's different approaches. And the easiest way to look at it is one is very natural, holistic, lifestyle driven, whereas the other is also lifestyle, but biometric and science driven.
And so, as you see it, they're very complementary. You need both, is what you're saying.
You have to be. If you do some senolytic protocols, autophagy, hormesis, which we might get into a bit later,
Yeah.
those type of strategies, but you eat McDonald's and you don't move and you sleep terribly, that's not
Mm.
really going to help. And what's even more interesting now is also the inclusion of spiritual well-being, meaning and purpose in all of this. So it is a bit muddled up, but you have to have both wellness as well as longevity strategies because we
Mm.
also see these very healthy people who get cancer or other diseases, and you wonder why did they do that? It's
Mhm.
because they lived a very wellness focused life, but maybe not a longevity strategy on getting rid of their senescent or zombie cells.
The wellness industry has traditionally focused on holistic well-being, right? And you cited how data-driven longevity is. So do you see these worlds from a cultural standpoint, like merging or colliding? Where do you think that will net out?
I think they will merge and collide a lot, and they already are.
Mm.
What's very interesting is that whereas the wellness industry hasn't been that data and biometric driven, and longevity industry hasn't been holistic and enjoyment of life and purpose and wellness driven. So I think that the wellness industry will learn from the longevity industry and have a lot more measurements. And we're already seeing that enter. We're having various biometric screening, we're doing glucose monitoring, and at the same time, the discussion in longevity is that you can do all these biometric and data driven interventions, but unless you have a holistic wellness approach and enjoyment of life, you're not going to live a long life. So it's really a bit of a tag along, push along that we're seeing right now. I think the differences right now is that we are in the wellness industry splashing longevity on anything wellness. A walk in the park is a longevity walk. And we have a relaxation lounger, that's a longevity lounger. So I think it's very important that we in the wellness industry be educated and be true and have high integrity on how we integrate longevity.
You've been a student of longevity for a while now, and you were really one of the first in the wellness community who identified this need to understand and work with what's coming out of the longevity movement. How did you spot this need? And I would love to hear more about the masterclass that you created from seeing what was going on.
Yeah, the masterclass will be with the Raison d'Etre educational arm, and it will be released pretty soon. But what I saw was there's a gap because we see these longevity experts who are very advanced and talk about medical interventions, stem cells, exosomes, peptides, hyperbaric, and other things that are very data driven, whereas the wellness has missed that boat a bit and then are trying to talk about longevity without having the proper education. So there needs to be an education. And that's why I've put this masterclass together, very step by step. What is the difference of wellness and longevity? It's looking at what is the vocabulary and strategies of longevity that differs from wellness. What are the data points? What are the hallmarks of aging? What is the cell biology and mitochondrial biology, so to speak, of the cell, to understand those, but in a very simple way, so you can easily understand how can we integrate that in the wellness industry without going full medical. And then also it's going to be a part of like, how do you integrate it into your daily life as well? There's going to be different business models. And I think at this point, I've worked with quite a few of the business models that you can marry wellness with longevity today. What we're seeing with the longevity clinics that I'm part of building at the moment is that they are incorporating a lot of wellness into the clinic. So you don't want this white medical clinic. You want it also to be very warm and enjoyable and pleasure-based. So we're seeing emerging of that, but there is definitely all of those aspects will be covered in this masterclass, but in a very easy way to understand what longevity is and how it differs from wellness and how you can approach it from a business perspective and also from a personal perspective.
Amazing. And before we dive into some of the big questions around the longevity movement's relationship to wellness, I wanted you to share some thoughts that we talked about before around the influence of David Sinclair's book, Lifespan, and how it moved these topics from the academic world into the mainstream.
Yeah, David Sinclair's book came out end of 2019. I remember reading it early 2020. And it was the first time it really looked at lifestyle interventions and not just scientific biometric data to look at longevity. And I think his book really opened up this topic to a wider audience. Although his book focuses on sirtuins, and that's also what feeds the sirtuins is NAD. So that book also started the whole NAD craze. So it's really opened up. But at the same time, it's also one part of longevity. Longevity is a bit wider, but it is an incredibly good book. And I loved reading it. And it definitely got me interested in longevity.
I think it's really helpful to sort of timestamp in that way when longevity entered the mainstream. And I think that book and then his podcast was a huge moment. Can you touch on some of the pillars or the science that you think it's really important people in the wellness world understand?
I think one of the main thing is the senescent cells or the zombie cells that we have roaming around in our body, and they accumulate. And if we don't clean them out, they are the main culprit of aging. So they causes us, and they are the cancers, the Alzheimer's, and other autoimmune diseases. So we need to have a cleansing system, which is strategic. And that cleansing system is called autophagy. It's meaning self-eating, and it can also heal damaged cells that are becoming zombie cells. So literally, it's a cell cleaning strategy that you need. And there are various ways to do that. And one is, say, longevity gene called mTOR. I often look at it as the Viking Tor, the god. And the god of Tor is very muscly. So mTOR is what is responsible for building muscle. But when we're building all the time, we're not cleaning. So we need to have a strategy where we downregulate mTOR, and we do that by not eating protein, because what fuels mTOR to build muscle is protein. So we need to eat maximum 20 grams of protein per day if we want to do autophagy. And also most of the day should be fasting. And that way we downregulate mTOR, and then we do a cell cleaning. So these are very basics. And then you can speed up recovery or autophagy with something called hormesis, which is short bursts of stress. That can be sauna or cold plunge, intermittent fasting, sprints, and other things that will stress the body so it can be stronger. So these are the very basics that you need. You need to understand some cell biology,
Mm-hmm.
something about mTOR and sirtuins, and how
Mm-hmm.
they interplay with autophagy and senescent cell protocol.
And the autophagy protocols, those are like cyclical things that you would do in a certain defined period of time.
Yeah, I would do it maybe every month, a
Mm-hmm.
3-day protocol of autophagy. I do maybe a bit more hardcore because I'm used to it and do a water fast
Mm-hmm.
with infrared sauna, compression boots, some potential cryotherapy. So that's what I use. And then long walks and no intensive muscle training. So I do that maybe 3 days a month. But I
Mm-hmm.
would say even if you do it once a quarter, and you can also alternate it where if you can't do a 3-day water fast, you eat a vegan meal per day or even two smaller one and in like a 5-hour window and you can fast the rest of the day. And you do this for 3 days. And that is an excellent autophagy cleansing protocol. And also, we should know that every night when we sleep, we also do autophagy, but it depends on how we ended our evening. If we ended it with karaoke and sake and lots of protein, maybe not the best autophagy. But if we do what we know that we're supposed to do, then you can get a really good autophagy every night as well.
And you're one of the few founders who has created both wellness and longevity retail hospitality concepts and have done so across the globe. So it would be interesting to hear like how things are differing country to country and what are some of these concepts that you've worked on in Australia, Ibiza, and Sweden. Maybe we start with Sweden and what you've built there on the longevity front.
I've built a club called V Social Club, which is a longevity club, but it's also very rooted, obviously, in social. But we have done a business model where we're not a medical facility, but we are able to do blood tests in the lab around the corner. And we have tied together a lot of medical experts, whether it's gut, stress, hormones, that we refer our members to. But we have a system where we do blood glucose monitor, Aura ring, looking at HRV and other aspects, do a intake from a functional medicine expert, and then we create programs and looking at senescent protocols, biohacking protocols, wellness protocols in order. So that is working very well when it comes to lifestyle intervention, but it's also cultural because medicine and lifestyle is very separated in Sweden. So you have
Mhm.
to look at that, and medical licensing and what you're able to do is different from example what you can do in Spain or even Norway or Denmark that are close by. So every country is very country specific. Then if we go to Ibiza or in Spain, you can do a lot more, but it needs to be medically rooted. So there we have a full medical team on site that whenever you do an IV, they also assess you and prescribe you the IV, which is not the case, for instance, in the US, where you don't have to have a prescription. I would say the most complicated thing is to look at medical regulation and licensing, whereas in Ibiza, what we've done there is that we've created Rose Bar, which is a super cool longevity clinic where we also have a lot of biohacking intervention. And then we have a Six Senses wellness facility that do the personal training and the sound bath and other interventions. So that has two different third-party facilities, so to speak, coupled together to cooperate, where one is medical and we can do
Mhm.
medical intervention, and the other one is also driving the solutions with all the various interventions that we have in there. And then we've looked at Australia, and Australia is interesting because it's a completely different culture there. People are very close to nature. They want more very authentic experiences, real experiences. So not that much medical, but there we're creating, and it hasn't opened yet, a combined medical longevity and wellness facility all in one. And we're seeing them starting to pop up, but they need in Australia a bit more. It's been a very underdeveloped market in this space, but it needs to be a lot of nature because it's such a nature country.
Yeah.
You need nature, you need simplicity, you need joy of life. If it's not fun, it's not interesting.
I love
Whereas
that.
sometimes in the US, if it's not medical, it's not good. So
Yeah.
you really need to look at what the different aspects of culture is and how you implement it and what the medical regulations are.
Going back to the Swedish versus Ibiza ones, the V Social, is something that people are accessing as part of their day-to-day life, right? Versus Ibiza is more they're on vacation.
That is
So,
correct. So this is a longer lifestyle interventions where you interact it on a daily basis and it helps you with your recovery also, because what we're seeing with longevity, and you can look at all these biomarkers, what we've seen so far is that stress is the number one challenge. So recovery is becoming very important. It's like for me today, I got off this morning on a plane from Japan, a bit jet lagged. I went in and did a cryo and a red light. And that completely helped me recover in a different way and changed my day. So that's one way to do it. If I then have a problem sleeping tonight, I might go in and just pop in and do an infrared sauna because I know that will help with my sleep. So these are various ways on how you work with it when you have a special intervention like jet lag, but on a daily basis, it's a long-term, everyday strategy that we work with. Whereas in Ibiza, you go in for 1 to 2 weeks of doing a reset. So it's really igniting those longevity markers that can help you work on autophagy and work on upregulating mTOR, and then doing that for a short period of time. So it's a longevity intensive, and that will get you on the right track and then will help you afterwards to stay on track. But you need to do it on a daily basis. It's like you can't just go to the gym for a week and then you don't have to go to the gym for the rest of the year. So preferably you would have both. But often it's difficult to do in the city because it's about those daily rituals and habits that you stack up. So it's really good to go away and just get a kickstart and then continue it back home.
it's cool to see the two different concepts both being really successful. They're both needed, the sort of reset, reboot in a destination experience, and then the day-to-day when you're at home. What have been the learnings with V Social, like in terms of how people are interacting with the different things being offered and whether they're embracing the data? What are the learnings and surprises from being open?
What's been the learning is education is key, but at the same time, they don't want too much education. They just want to be told what to do. So you need the expertise there. And then after a while, the ones that are interested catch on and they can kind of manage themselves and understand what to do when. But it's really important to have the expertise, not just for a consultation, but every day they come in and they can say, oh, I'm feeling like I'm getting a cold. What should I do? Okay, go in and do PMF at a low dosage today, just 15 minutes, and maybe some red light, definitely no cryo. And looking at how do you work with this on a daily basis, you need the expertise. And I think it's in our Western world that we've so been used to a doctor, an expert telling us all the time what to do. But we are also seeing that we have a challenge of making sure that people take their own responsibility of their life and what decisions that they make, because they know their body. We cannot just listen to the biometrics. We need to listen to our bodies. And that's something that is not easy for us to do because we haven't done that for the last almost 50 to 100 years, I think, where it's all been about you can do whatever you want. You don't have to listen to your body. And when you feel that something is wrong, you go to a doctor who tells you what's wrong. And we've seen that does not work. So I think what we're seeing, the biggest learning is education is key, expertise is key to lead and to slowly, very slowly educate. And there's also big skepticism. So you need to give it science, and every intervention that we're doing there is very scientific. Then we have sound bath and meditations where people just feel good, because it's equally important how you feel when you do things. We have this that wellness and longevity has to be pain. We have to give something up, but it doesn't have to be that way. And that's why we do the social aspect. And if you do it together, and if we do classes, if we do other interventions that are also fun, and that they understand that a cryotherapy, it's not suffering, it's actually what's going to reset your body, and it gives you a 300% increase in endorphins. So your brain will be on fire for 6 to 7 hours in the day. So what you produce is going to be so much better. So when you look at how pleasurable that is to have an active and clear brain, then that's actually pleasure. And that's what we should focus on, not the suffering of going in for 3 minutes of cold and how bad it is. It's that delayed gratification that we talk about when we talk about habits.
I'm curious, Anna, are we going to see a governing body of some kind come in and standardize how treatments like hyperbaric or red light therapy are administered?
I am not sure we will in the near future. I think it's its own responsibility, because if we just look at IV, which is more medical, it's all over the place, all over the world. So it's different strategies. There's no common knowledge, but there is a responsibility. And what I'm seeing right now in the spa and wellness industry, that some are doing it really well, but some are not. So for instance, if we look at red light therapy, we know that the receptors of light in our cells hits just below the surface, they are full after 20 minutes, and more than 20 minutes is harmful. So that actually becomes a negative response and too much stress to the body. So it is very important that the people who are doing the red light, and I would say that 9 out of 10 has no idea about this, and they're thinking that more is better. So as much red light, let's be in an hour in the red light. We're seeing that people doing intermittent hypoxia training or cell gym, which is high altitude training, and then doing a cryo afterwards. That means a really high stress on the body and another high stress on the body. It becomes negative and not the positive effect. So you're basically wasting and not working with your body. So unless you know this as someone who offers these services, and people do not know it right now. So I think, again, education, and then communities like Global Wellness Summit and Global Wellness Institute to provide guidelines on how to use it, because it can actually be harmful. And more is not always better. Less is more, and very focused on what you want to achieve and how long. It's the same with, I hear people are doing like 15 minutes ice bath or being in the cryotherapy. Then the hormesis effect of a positive stress is too high. It's like if you go in and do a very heavy weightlifting for 3 hours, that is not going to build your body out. It's going to break it down. So the same thing is here, is to understand how much is enough, how much is harmful, what do you put together. But there needs to be guidelines coming out rooted in science.
Yeah, and there are no standards. So it's another thing, as you said, the Global Wellness Institute could take on, because these worlds are coming together.
They are. And again, as I said in the beginning, we have this beautiful push and pull with data and metrics. So we just have to embrace it more in the wellness industry, and the longevity has to embrace the spiritual well-being and with the interventions of music and what that does for our nervous system and other things that makes the medical longevity become more pleasurable.
And I think this conversation has really made me realize that the wellness world has a huge opportunity to humanize what's going on in longevity. And in fact, the wellness world that could really deliver what the longevity movement should be, right? This more holistic, less medicalized version, while still achieving a lot of those outcomes.
I agree. And if you look at just, for instance, a sleep program, if you go to a clinic, they will basically say, you can't train, you can't drink alcohol, you can't do this, you can't look at your phone, and you need to deprive yourself of this and put on these blue blocking glasses. That means that everything is red for the last hour. And then instead of looking at it, if you create this beautiful central nighttime experience that you look forward to every day to do before you go to bed, so it becomes a wonderful ritual. Maybe you have a cup of tea and some great music and some anointment oils and other things. So I think those are things that are where you can look at it from where the wellness industry, but the medical industry is always like A, B, C, and very strict. So I think we need to marry that, because it is very hard to keep to a rigid program, but it is much easier to keep to a pleasure-based program. I think the both medical and wellness and longevity industry need to embrace looking at it positively instead of negatively.
It's so true. I know it's interesting. You gave an amazing keynote at the summit about how Amazon does a better job of getting us excited about a package that's arriving through emails and notifications than the spa industry does to get us excited about an upcoming super pleasurable service. And so from the customer journey standpoint, how can we deliver more of that pleasure and joy that it's all about?
Yeah, and it's interesting. At Successes, we're doing a whole retake on how we communicate with looking at the neurotransmitters. So everyone is today talking about dopamine and social media. Now, what most people don't know with dopamine is that it doesn't surge when you get the experience. It surges for the anticipation. So if you are buying a package on Amazon, you get these wonderful, beautiful tidbits of saying, we are packaging it in a beautiful package and we can't wait for you to experience this product that you bought. Whereas in the spa industry, we said, Thank you for your booking. Please come 10 minutes early to your 60-minute massage and you will have a female therapist. And that's it.
Right.
There's no excitement. You can make it so much more. We can't wait to welcome you. It's also the reward system that which produces serotonin and oxytocin. If you go in a city and book a spa treatment, you immediately become a member and then you get some points or rewards because every other industry are doing this. And then when you come the next time, you can use those for getting a juice or compression boots before your treatment. And then you're like, oh my God, I got this. And when you book the next time, it's like where you're loyal to book. So again, we haven't at all explored this in the wellness industry to the point that we can, I would say in longevity and medical clinics, again, can look at this in a more interesting way.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So Anna, being in this seat and playing host gives me such amazing access to brilliant, thoughtful people like yourself. And people always want to know, what is your personal approach to longevity? What are those practices that have made the biggest difference for you?
I have a practice where I every morning do a meditation. It is anything from 5 minutes to 45 minutes, depending on the time. I get up at 6 a.m. I go to bed at 10, which has been really difficult for me because I'm a night owl. But I've trained myself and I feel so much better because if I get up at 6, I can do my meditation and then I can go and do whatever training I want to do. So I do my meditation, I do hydration, do 5 minutes of stretching just to wake up the body and kind of align it. And then I go and do a workout and then I start my day after that. One of the most important things that I've done is that I block out my calendar 2 weeks in advance, always when I'm training. If it's in the middle of the day, in the afternoon, whenever it is, depending on the day. And I also put in what biohacks do I do if I am in Stockholm. But here I have, with the V-Social, I have cryo, red light, infrared, cell gym, PMF, all of these various. So I know that if I need my brain to be sharp, probably go into intermittent hypoxia, high altitude training together with red light. If I do a really 2-hour hard paddle game, I will do cryo and compression and I will increase my recovery with 40%. That's huge. For me, it's having these rituals in the morning. Also, one of the most important things, because I think we have a brain tiredness today, is that I set 2 alarms every day. One when I wake up, and the next alarm is either 30 or 60 minutes after I wake up when I am allowed to look at my phone. Because if we do look at our phone, the first thing we do, what happens is that we get brain tired and our brain never gets up to even its normal capacity for the rest of the day. So in the first 30 minutes when we wake up, we get as much information as we did in a whole week 50 years ago. And our brains have not changed. So these are a couple of hacks that you look at. Meditate, don't look at your phone, hydrate, do some stretches, and then get on. And all of that can take 20 minutes if you need to, or it can take a longer time depending on how much time you have. But all of us has 20 minutes in the morning unless you oversleep, and you can do that. And so I think those are things to get started. And the same thing when you end your day. It's really important to look at what's your strategy. When do you stop eating? When do you start looking at your phone, making sure that you don't sit and work until you go to bed because then you won't sleep well, and understanding what triggers your sleep and what doesn't.
Totally. What are emerging research or technology that excites you most?
There's a lot of interesting oxygen research and how oxygen impacts us. We need oxygen in every cell of our bodies. We are working with Oxford Longevity Project, which is a nonprofit organization on longevity, to get the right intel of what works. And they're also very lifestyle intervention focused. So I think that is really important and interesting. I think the supplementation industry are just booming, but that costs a lot of money. But you do need to have some basic supplementation. And we're seeing that with magnesium and vitamin D, vitamin C, iron, if you're iron deficient, vitamin B. These are things that you need, but then you can get a lot more longevity focused using resveratrol and M&M and MR. So these that are NAD precursors to help you increase that. So I think we're seeing a lot of science going into that. And then we have the technology bit, the red light, infrared, and blue light and green light, that spectrum, because if we were outside as we were before, we won't need most of these things. But today we spend 90% indoors. If we are out in sunrise and sunset, then we don't need the red light. We get so much better red light naturally. But what we're doing with a lot of these intervention is mimicking if you would have been out in nature and to get that in the city. So we get all those nutrients that we get from nature normally. So we're seeing that an understanding of this is also one of the emergent techniques. So oxygen is super important. I do think light therapy is very important, and the hormesis aspect on how we stress our body with cold and hot therapy. And then we have all the more scientific research. Stem cells is a big controversy at the moment. Do we use stem cells? Do we use our own? Do we use someone else? Do we have umbilical cord? What's the risk? What are the rewards? How do we use it most effectively? Do we pair it with V cells and exosomes or not? And I can tell you, I've seen some panels, the scientific industry is not agreeing on this. So that's something that we're going to see a lot more of in the future, because a lot of research is happening in this, but they're not agreeing on what is the right way forward.
What do you recommend given how fast changing the science is?
My number one recommendation is that there is one source that you can get more information than anywhere else in the world, and that's listening to your own body and what it needs. And doing that when you wake up and feeling like, if I am really tired today and I feel that my body's tired, maybe I shouldn't go and do a really hard exercise in the gym. Maybe I'll do a long walk instead. So these are the things that I think that we've forgotten, is to listen to our body. That's the number one scientific advice I can give you, and everyone agrees on. It's also very cheap. It doesn't take that much time. It just needs that you get tuned in. But again, I would say that there are these databases, and Global Wellness Institute has one really good scientific, if you go into their website and to look at the database that they have for science. But unfortunately, a lot of the science has not become validated that are out there. So then you again have to look at trusted sources. Now we do have AI happening, and what you need to do, instruct AI to do, I have learned though, is to say, I only want scientific results, because AI can sometimes bake things and make assumptions. But if you tell AI to say only scientific validated results, so that's the easiest way today to get information, but that's not from a single source. They look at what data is out there and then they compile an answer. But for an everyday person, and even a spa or wellness operator where it's not medical, I think that is good enough, because you get an indication on what is safe and what's not. And they will always tell you, AI, to say, don't do this without a doctor's permission. And then you shouldn't. But where they said this is a general consensus of how you use NAD and where it's good or not good.
And I think you hinted earlier in the conversation that we're going to see a lot of AI products around longevity, where it will ingest our own medical wearable data and start to give us recommendations.
It is so cool. How I use wearables is I use it twice a year. One time in the spring, one time in the fall, for a couple of months. And I do blood tests and Dutch tests and all kinds of other tests that I feel that I need to do together with wearables, get a good understanding. And then I spend the rest of the year of just listening to my body and understanding where I need to go, because I already know like what a good night's sleep and a bad night's sleep, and I've got the information. But I can also easily key in and say, I feel a bit tired and this has happened and this is how my day looks, because no wearable can show this, but AI can help you with that. And then in that way, you can get a really good information on what you should do every day.
I love that idea of not having your wearables all the time, but doing it seasonally.
It's a great thing, I have to say. It's helped me a lot. I don't need to have my Oura Ring all the time, because why do I need to ask an app how I slept? I can feel it.
Right. And my last question, Anna, that I ask every guest is, how do you balance the pursuit of longevity with the desire to enjoy life and its various indulgences?
80-20. I would say it works. You try to do the best you can 80%, but you don't sweat. We're seeing so many people becoming completely anal, if I may say so, about their wellness. And if they don't do their meditation or their ginger shot or whatever it is that they have, then their day is ruined, or they don't get a perfect sleep score, or whatever it is. I think you have to take it not too seriously, have fun and enjoy life, be social. As we said in the beginning, my karaoke night, I did not feel the best the next day, but I can tell you it was so worth it, and I'll remember it for the rest of my life. And we had so much fun. And it's just about enjoying life, having pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
We know that curiosity, being positive, having
Mm-hmm.
purpose adds
Yep.
more life to your years than any other physical intervention. If you don't deal with your traumas, you're actually dying 20 years younger than you need to. So there's all of those things. You need to just enjoy life and deal with
Mm-hmm.
traumas, and don't sweat the small stuff, and just try to do the best you can.
I love that. And Anna, where can people find you, follow you, learn more about your masterclass?
Instagram, I would say, is probably under my name. And then also on the Sixth Senses, Raison d'etre, Be Social, various accounts and websites. There's always information there as well.
Anna Bjurstam, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Alexia. I think this podcast is so incredibly important to spread the knowledge and understanding of longevity. So really honored and happy to be on.
Thank you so much. And Anna, I mean, there's no more perfect guest than someone who really straddles the wellness and longevity world. So thank you.